Do you find yourself procrastinating more than you'd like to? If you stick with me until the end of the video, I'm going to share with you my insights on what exactly makes people procrastinate and my solutions, my personal solutions on how you can fix your procrastination forever. Now, if you're not familiar with me, first of all, my name is Lenny Richardson. I also go by Leviticus Rich, and I'm the top productivity coach in Northern Virginia. Now, I want to get into this. Procrastination is one of those things that affects everybody all the time, and it's one of the biggest issues I've come to hear from most of my clients. So many people want to achieve a goal. So many people want to find success. The thing that's holding them back the most is that they procrastinate too much. And then days go by, weeks go by, months go by, and in a lot of cases, even years go by without people actually accomplishing a goal. And to be honest, it's not even so much that people don't just accomplish the goal. It's that most people don't even start the goal at all. So, procrastination is a pretty big thing. And I think by understanding just a few simple tweaks and understanding exactly what makes you procrastinate, you can kind of give yourself sort of armor to prevent yourself from procrastinating. It's almost like you're going to battle with procrastination. And by just knowing exactly what its weaknesses are, what it's composed of, you can fight back more effectively. So I want to share those with you in this video. Now, in my experience and from what I've researched and from what I've seen with people, there are about two main reasons why people procrastinate the most. And the second reason is kind of a few things kind of put together, but there are really two main reasons why people procrastinate so much. Now, the first reason that I found that lead people to procrastinate a lot is people just don't know how to achieve their goal. And since they don't know how to achieve their goal, they don't really bother tackling it. For example, perhaps you've been given a project by your boss or by a manager, and it's a bit of a complex project. You don't exactly know how to get the project done. You don't even know where to begin. And so maybe you've been given 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get this project done. What a lot of people do is they sit there and they take a day, 2 days, a week, just trying to think of what they could be doing with the hopes that something will pop into their head. Some magical solution will just appear for them. And this is because they don't really know exactly how to achieve that goal. In this situation, this person does not know how to achieve the goal of finishing this project. They don't know what components the project is comprised of. They don't exactly know which steps to take to achieve that outcome. So what they do is they do nothing at all, and they hope that something will pop into their head. Now, this is a very common reason why people procrastinate, but I think this is also one of the easiest things to overcome. And what I recommend to people is just try to reverse engineer the process required to achieve that goal. And I know that might sound a little bit complicated, that might sound confusing, but what I recommend to people is find someone that has done the thing you're trying to do or has done something similar to what you're trying to do and simply mimic them. Simply do whatever it is that they did. And the reason why I say this is because what most people do is they try to overanalyze things. If they don't exactly know how to do something, they either give up or they overanalyze, and both of those things don't lead to a desired outcome. If you give up, of course, you're not going to actually achieve anything because you've given up. But if you overanalyze, it leads to what's called analysis paralysis. It's basically you're thinking of things too much and you're considering too many different options, too many different circumstances, too many different solutions that you're stunned on which one of those options or solutions to even pick. So you pick none of them. The best thing to do is just mimic someone who's done whatever it is you want to do or something similar to the T. And a few things might happen. One, you're going to mimic that person and you're going to get exactly what you were looking for. You're going to mimic their process and the process will also work for you. If that works, then that's absolutely perfect. The second thing that's probably most likely going to happen is that you'll start to mimic them, but it won't work exactly like it worked for them. And the reason for this is because there might be some steps that you just don't know about that person may have done to achieve this outcome. Maybe they just didn't share it. Maybe they consider documenting it, whatever. Or maybe just because you are two different people, some things work for others better than it might work for you. Fair enough. But the reason why this is still good is because you've at least made some progress. And that's ultimately what productivity comes down to, is progress. Are you making progress? Are you moving in the direction of your goal? And so what you can always do is you can kind of pivot from this direction. Maybe you've taken 5 steps toward the completion of this project, for this example, but now you don't know exactly where to go. That's fine. You've made some progress. You can always just pivot and either on your own think about the best solution to your problem, or find someone else that might be a little bit further ahead and do what they did and kind of repeat this process until you eventually get something done. Does that make sense? At the core of the second solution, you're really trying to create momentum. And this momentum is really what leads people to achieve results. There's sort of a saying, it's kind of like in physics, an object at rest tends to remain at rest unless another object pushes against it. If you have no momentum, it's difficult to get things done. You need to find some way to create momentum, and you create momentum by simply just mimicking what other people do. That's the first problem that I find that people have, and that's my solution to that problem. The second thing I tend to find usually is a problem with most people, and the reason why they procrastinate is they're not interested in the goal itself. And when I say not interested in the goal, this kind of has a few other components to it. For example, maybe they don't find the goal worthwhile. It's still a form of not being interested, or they don't see the long-term benefits to the goal, which again is just another way of saying it's not worthwhile, and because it's not worthwhile, it's not interesting. That's the second reason why I find a lot of people procrastinate. Now, how do you overcome this second option? What I'm going to share with you is not revolutionary. It's not that complicated. It's pretty straightforward, but it's something that I see a lot of people neglect to do. And it's simply this: don't do it. If the goal doesn't make sense to you, if it's not admirable to you, if the outcome isn't desirable, or if you don't think it's worthwhile, then consider not doing it. Because chances are, if you're not motivated enough to see a solution, to see a project or task through, because the goal is not compelling enough, then you have to question and ask yourself, why are you even shooting for the goal in the first place? And I'll give you a quick example of this. Back when I was in college, I found that a lot of people, when they first start out as a freshman or a sophomore, at least at Penn State where I went to school, a lot of them begin as engineers. And once at the end of sophomore year, you're supposed to declare your major. And then from that point on, you're doing your 200, 300 level courses, whatever, to get your actual degree. By the time the end of sophomore year came around, most people dropped out of the engineering program. Now, if you were to ask engineers, and I had a lot of engineering friends, if you were to ask them, they would say, well, most people just couldn't cut it. Most people weren't smart enough to finish the engineering program. Most people didn't have the insights or the intellect or whatever to finish engineering. Is that true for some people? Maybe. Maybe there are some people that just could not comprehend the concepts that comprise whatever particular form of engineering they were trying to do. Perhaps they couldn't comprehend it. But I give people more credit. I think more people are smarter than that. I think really what it came down to is that the people that dropped out just weren't interested in engineering. And there was a friend of mine, for example, she was in engineering, I think mechanical engineering. And when I talked to her, I asked her, why'd you get into mechanical engineering? She had no reason why. The real reason, when you really sat there and kind of talked to her, was her parents wanted her to do it. And so she figured she would do it. Her parents said, oh, it'd make a lot of money. It'd give you financial stability. It's a good career, high status, whatever. None of those things she was interested in. She was not interested in the money. She wasn't interested in the status. She was not interested in engineering at all. Really what she was interested in was kind of getting back to the community. I think she was better off as more of a social worker or something along those lines. And I think that's kind of what she ended up doing. But she dropped out. And I think her situation is not uncommon to a lot of people. A lot of people do things not because they want to do them, not because they find them interesting, but they do them because other people tell them that these things should be done. And so they procrastinate and they never really make much progress because they don't find a reason to make progress. Another quick example. When I was young, when I was about 7 or 8 or so, I started playing the trumpet. Now, I don't like the trumpet at all. I hated the trumpet. But the reason why I started playing the trumpet was because I thought my parents would like the fact that I picked up trumpet, because I saw one of my cousins play trumpet and she got so much attention, so much praise for playing trumpet. I figured if I play trumpet, I'll get that exact same attention and that exact same praise. But it didn't work out that way because I neglected the whole practicing aspect of it. I neglected that I just don't like the sound of trumpets. They're not that pleasant of an instrument to me. I'm not saying they can't be pleasant, but in the grand scheme of things, I just don't like the way they sound. I like instruments like guitars more. They sound better to me. Drums are cool too. But trumpets, not so much. Saxophones, sure, not so much trumpets though. But when it came down to it, I just didn't practice. I always procrastinated practicing. If I did practice, and if I did practice, it's because my dad forced me to practice. But when I did practice, it was super half-assed. It was never a good attempt. It was never a good effort. And after I think about 2 or 3 years, I really made no progress. I was not much better after 3 years than I was when I first started. I didn't memorize any of the notes. I couldn't play any better. My blowing technique, all that stuff wasn't good. And the reason is because I just didn't find the goal or the outcome interesting. So I never put much time into practicing. So again, if you find yourself in that situation where the goal itself isn't compelling, you need to really sit there and question, why are you doing it in the first place? Now, with that being said, I understand that there are some goals out there that you have to do. There are some tasks that need to be done, and they might not be interesting. For example, in my own life, this is after I graduated from college, I wanted to get my real estate license. Now, the idea, the goal of becoming a real estate agent was exciting to me. It was interesting, and it did kind of feed into my long-term goals. However, the studying aspect and taking the tests did not. I completely found it useless. I found it just obnoxious. I don't like the idea of sitting there studying for 60 hours just to take this test, but it needs to be done. That's the rule. I have to do it. So initially, I did procrastinate a lot. I think for the 60 hours that you need to take the test, I could have really finished all of that in like a month or two. And it took me, I think, almost half a year, maybe about a year or so, to finish those 60 hours. That's how much I procrastinated. And again, the reason is not because the goal itself wasn't worthwhile to me, but the steps to getting that goal was just unappealing. Like the actual studying and the actual test taking wasn't that interesting. Now, how did I overcome this? I overcame this by simply just forcing myself to do it. Finding a way, kind of grounding myself toward the outcome and thinking to myself, if I just get this done, the outcome will be worth it. And it's not the most clever solution. It's not probably a thing that people want to hear. I think most people, when they want to overcome procrastination, they want to find a hack or some kind of like secret. In this situation, I don't think there is a really big secret. I think just starting to do at least a little bit helps. And then once you start to do something, you build up momentum. And then with that momentum, you can carry that. And that'll allow you to kind of push through procrastination with force, so to speak. And that's what I did. If I didn't want to study, I would just read something real estate related. What I used to do is I'd watch $1 Million Listing with Ryan Serhant and all the guys in New York. And that would motivate me enough to be mildly interested in studying with the hopes that I eventually get my real estate license. And then with that momentum, I would study for as long as I needed to at that day, until I get tired or bored or whatever. But that's what helped me kind of overcome that procrastination and ultimately achieve the goal of studying enough to take my license. And I did eventually take the license and I did eventually pass. I do have my real estate license. I am still a real estate agent to this day. But that's the point that I want to make, is that there are some micro steps that you don't want to do on the path toward a bigger goal that might be interesting or that might be appealing. You kind of have to force through it. You kind of have to find some way, link it in some way, link something positive to the action required to achieve a goal. And by doing that, you can just do a little bit. And then once you do a little bit, you build momentum. And then once you build momentum, you can carry that momentum throughout the entire task or project and eventually achieve your goal. So hopefully that helps. By the way, if you're watching this, there's a link in the description. It'll take you to a page where there's a free video. It's my 3-step system to having the perfect week and overcoming procrastination and having maximum focus. It's super simple, step-by-step process. It's like a 30-minute video, again, for free. If you click the link below, it'll take you straight to it. There's no charge to watch it. But I think if you watch that video by itself, you'll be so much further ahead of everyone else when it comes to having a productive week. So with that being said, feel free to click the link. I'll see you in that video. But until the next time, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you. Peace out. Bye.